Hello again, and welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. I'm Eric Sfiligoj, and I'm here today with my new co-host, Richard Jones. RJ, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful snowy day here in Cleveland. A little warmer than it was last night, but not much. But it's January in Cleveland, so what can you expect?
I was going to say, I know it's bad when there's been no snowfall event, but the wind chills are below zero to the point that, of course, most of the schools that I'm aware of in the area have actually closed today. So for them to close middle of the week in January, it's got to be intense weather type of a deal. So, but that's Ohio. So
Yep, it's brisk out there this morning, but we'll get through it. The days are getting
first,
longer, and summer or spring is on the way.
First, for most of our viewers who may not know, of course, you're originally from Texas. So I suspect that sub-zero wind chill day, wind chill in Texas was probably what, 20,
Yeah,
25?
yeah. This is a whole different world. No.
Well, very good. Well, hey, we're together. So I know you are just back from, I guess, a little warmer part of the world, Phoenix, Arizona, or actually Glendale, more specifically, and our 2022 Vision Conference. But you could please give our viewers a little of the lowdown on what went down at that 2-day event there in the middle of the desert.
Sure, absolutely. It was a great event. It was the first Vision Conference we've been able to do in person since right before all the pandemic started back in 2020. So we had close to 200 people down in Glendale for 2 full days of networking and panel discussions and presentations. Really, it was just so good to be able to be in person and get that networking and just face-to-face discussion on some of these really important issues. In the past, Vision has been pretty precision agriculture focused, but over the past couple of years, especially as things have evolved, we're seeing more pressures on the market from the market itself and from consumers and retailers and regulation. That's really putting the pressure on us to start to use more elements of ag technology beyond just what we look at as precision. So we kind of broadened the program out a little bit this year to really focus on the full food value chain from inputs all the way through to the consumer and really take a look at how technology is impacting all those different areas. We focused kind of on regenerative agriculture, automation, connectivity, and transparency were kind of the pillars. So again, just a great couple of days with a ton of really high level information that we were able to share with our attendees. Again, we get so many good comments about just being able to be back in person and talk with each other face to face about this stuff. And we're going to be sharing some of this in a digital report that will be available after this. So I'll be watching for details on that.
Okay, and I also know that the March edition of CropLife magazine, which we are working on, as we're recording this video, I know we'll also have some coverage, post-show coverage in there as well. So if you enjoy the print product, you can check that out for yourselves coming up here in early March. So,
sure, thanks.
Well, very good. Well, while you, of course, were enjoying some sun out in Arizona, I got to go to Peoria, Illinois for the annual Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association meeting. I know that meeting went pretty well. It wasn't as well attended as it has been in the past, but if you want to get an idea of who was actually floating around the floor in sort of a manner, my friend JC Remsburg at Stuvie Construction was kind enough to share with me a video that he had taken at the show. He had mounted a 360 degree camera on a post behind his booth. And here's a little video clip of attendees coming and going in sort of a speeded up fashion, but you get a little idea of who was at that event. So again, our thanks to JC for supplying that video to us. That was very interesting. Richard, I know the IFCA show event, it like I say, it went pretty well. I know there were a couple of folks just before the show actually was going to take place who had contacted the association saying that some new travel restrictions had been put in place and they weren't able to attend or send people to the event. But again, I mean, the mood there was generally positive. And one of the highlights, and I'm going to give all the credit in the world to the IFCA president, Kevin Johnson, who goes by RJ, sorry. He was actually able to gather together 3 association heads in a roundtable discussion. That was Chris Novak from CropLife America, Corey Rosenbush from the Fertilizer Institute, and our friend Darren Kopic from the Agricultural Retailers Association, who was my guest on last week's video. And like I said, they got together for about an hour, talked about industry topics, took some questions from the audience. And in particular, get a little video clip here. Someone in the audience asked about a topic of conversation that everyone was discussing during 2021 and then probably will be going here into 2022 for the year, and that's carbon credits and the role that perhaps retailers are going to play in the carbon credit equation. So here's that little clip. I'll warn you now, it's a little longer than a normal clip would be, but like I say, you had 3 individuals answering 1 question, so I hope you enjoy it.
I'm just wondering from an ag retail perspective, how you see ag retailers playing a role in carbon credits, and then also how you see potential benefits for ag retailers out of that.
That's a question we've been asking for a while, and actually had some programming on our conference in San Antonio in November on that very subject. I think the short answer is that there are so many ways to measure and implement carbon credits in the marketplace right now that the first value that the retailer is going to bring is figuring out what's going to work. Because there's lots of ways you can go about doing this and lots of platforms you can use to keep track of them, lots of different ways to measure them with different levels of reliability. And so at some point we're going to settle on some standards for this is what sustainability means, this is how we're going to measure a carbon credit, and this is how you're going to get paid for that. And so in providing that clarity service for the grower, there's an opportunity there to provide value. Beyond that, there may also be some ways to serve as an aggregator so that you'd be pulling up either data or actually handling the credits for customers of yours. And I think that reporting opportunity, well, you got to be careful with privacy and who gets to see what data. I think you've got an opportunity for not only carbon credits, but also for those kinds of reporting that the downstream food industries are starting to ask for about what is this, how was it grown, what was used on it, all those traceability kinds of things. So if you can design a system that can provide those services to the customers that want to use that, I think there's an opportunity there too. So there's maybe a couple examples, but the fog is not clear yet.
Let's keep on carbon. Chris, Corey, what do you guys think on your guys' industry on the carbon markets, or how is it going to affect you guys?
So Corteva and Bayer, I think, have both announced a carbon credit program. But I'll go back even further than that. Monsanto, several years ago, had rolled out a carbon neutral commitment to say that they would make changes in their manufacturing processes to get to carbon neutral, and what they couldn't get from their manufacturing processes, they were going to create a program with their seed producers to encourage and support the farm practices that could help them reduce and get to carbon zero. So our industry's been moving in that and investing in that. I think there is some legislation in Washington, the Growing Climate Solutions Act, by Senator Braun, Republican from Indiana, and Senator Stabenow, Democrat from Michigan, designed to say, how do we take all these different programs and ensure that we've got some standards that allow for accurate measurability of what carbon is, and help put some guardrails on the pricing of carbon credits that will help standardize what all of our companies are doing. So I think Washington will continue to play a role. That may come more through USDA than it does through new legislation, but that's going to have some impact on how and where all of our companies are navigating in this space.
Yeah, everything they said. The only 2 things I would add is one, we are very focused on ensuring that any of those protocols and the standards that are written include and reference our 4R nutrient stewardship framework, because those are the practices that will help capture that carbon in the soil. And then second, maybe a little bit on the negative side, we had a speaker that came in, and obviously our members also have announced programs that are very inactive in this process, but We had a speaker that came in and they looked at about 1 million acres of their farmer customers to see how many of them could be eligible to be paid for capturing the carbon in their soil. And of it, only about 15%, only about 150,000 of those acres would qualify. And the struggle of traditional carbon markets that recognize new carbon capture and don't recognize the traditional practices that have historically occurred is going to be a huge challenge to overcome, not to mention just long-term, 5+ year tracking and commitment. So that's kind of the dialogue we're having, and we still don't know quite how we get over that hump.
So again, Richard, that's what they had to say about carbon credits. I thought Corey Rosenbusch's comment regarding making the distinction between growers that have been doing carbon capture for years and years and years versus folks that are just now getting involved in the market, who are actually kind of getting involved maybe for the rewards, the money rewards that are there, that you shouldn't have, the market should not be penalizing folks that have been doing, quote unquote, the right thing the whole time versus folks who are now going to start doing the right thing. So I think that'll be a very big question going forward, to see just how successful programs with carbon capture are going to be in agriculture in general.
It was a big topic at the Vision Conference as well. Obviously, regenerative agriculture and carbon, it's a lot of what people are talking about these days, obviously. And I think, you make the point of looking at it as we're penalizing the people who have been doing the right thing the whole time and not rewarding the people who haven't and are coming on maybe just to get the rewards. I think we need to look at this less as penalties and rewards and just rewarding everybody for good ad practices. Let's find a way to make this beneficial and carry through some value to everybody for doing the right thing. We're not doing it as an industry just for the money. We're doing it because it's the right thing, and it will have an impact if we do that. So let's find a way to reward everybody for taking part.
Yep, wholeheartedly agree. And again, bottom line, kind of to sum up everything from IFCA, it really was nice to be out there, Richard, to actually get out in the field again and see people in person. And I know, of course, your experience was the same in Arizona as well.
And it's something we're seeing with a lot of our Meister editors that are going out in our different markets that we cover. Everybody's been able to get back out to some in-person events this winter so far. And we're seeing some of the same things that you talked about seeing. Some shows are a little more limited due to travel restrictions that are up and down and changing all the time. But some are starting to get a little more back to what we've seen in the past. So that's a great sign too. Hopefully we're in the last big wave of challenges here with the pandemic, and we'll be able to get back to what we're used to being able to get back and do these things in person for sure.
Yep. Fingers definitely crossed on that front. Absolutely. So for those folks who actually are still doing stuff remotely, just a little plug on our end. I know next week, Richard, I'm going to be hosting a webinar. This will be the third webinar in our PACE Executive series of webinars that started back in November with my predecessor, Paul Shrimp, as the moderator. This one will be coming up on Thursday, February 3rd. Topic is going to be earning a closer partnership with the grower. I'm going to have 3 participants in that, retailer friends of mine, John Oster from Morrill Company, Amy Asmus from Asmus Farm Supply, and Greg Musson from Garb Bennett out in California, who are going to talk to me about that topic, about building closer relationships with the grower customer in this day and age, and look at some of the challenges that are facing ag retailers as we move forward here in 2022. So if you're interested, go onto the link that'll be on the screen here and register for the event, and we'll be happy to have you listen in as we talk.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, Richard, unfortunately for you, is your favorite, everybody's favorite segment coming up. It's time for Fun with Numbers.
Or as I like to call it, Eric's passive-aggressive abuse.
Don't think I haven't heard that before. Well, Mr. Richard, again, topic of conversation at a lot of the events I've been to has been what's going on, of course, in the fertilizer marketplace. And one of the speakers I heard at both the Illinois event and also the prior week at the Wisconsin Agribusiness Classic was Josh Linville from StoneX, who was basically talking about the fertilizer marketplace. So Josh had some interesting things to share, and your number that he gave and shared with the audience is 384%. And your clue, of course, this is one of the macronutrients in fertilizer. So what do you think 384% might represent when you're looking at one of the major components of crop nutrients for growers in the marketplace?
I would say we're looking at price increase for nitrogen this coming year.
Very okay. I will give you the ding on that one, because
Okay.
it is indeed a nitrogen product. This is anhydrous ammonia, NH3. And Josh was kind enough to point out that on September 3rd, 2020, the price to buy a ton of anhydrous ammonia was $279. Now, a little more than a year later, on December 9th, 2021, the price of a ton of anhydrous ammonia had risen to $1,071. And of course, if you do the quick math over the course of that 15 months, that's a 384% increase. Now, again, he threw out a lot of fertilizer numbers and a lot of price increases, but that was by far the largest one. Most of the price increases were about 190%, 200%, but 384% increase was the winner, quote unquote,
Wow.
in terms of an increase over 15 months for anhydrous ammonia.
In those discussions, is there any forecast on how long this bump is going to last, or any expectation of what we're looking at? during the year?
Josh Linville didn't say that specifically, but I know other folks that were talking about fertilizer said that, the last time we had a big run up in prices during 2008, 2009, basically, people stopped buying and more production came on stream to kind of alleviate the price margins that had gone up so quickly, so fast. So there was more supply, which brought prices down. But most of the speakers are pointing out that there really hasn't been any announcements from the major macronutrient producers that more production is coming and demand continues to rise worldwide for all of their products. So the speculation on most of these folks is that the volatility is going to last through this year and probably into 2023 as well. So,
Man, well, I mean, something to look for. Another thing where we can look forward to changing over time here.
well, and again, and I know from a purely our standpoint here in the media, it does give us a lot to talk about. And usually when people are not pleased with situations, they are more ready to give us good quotables that we can then use in videos and online and in our stories in print. So,
A way to find a silver lining there.
yeah, very good. Well, that's it for this edition of CropLife Retail Week. Thanks for joining us. And on behalf of myself and Richard Jones, we will see you next week.
Thanks, Eric.
If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comment section below. Your feedback is important to us. We will try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.